My beloved child. Do not scroll past this moment, because something has shifted, and the person connected to your heart can feel it. Right now, somewhere beyond what you can see, your soulmate is carrying a kind of happiness they have struggled to explain. It is not ordinary excitement. It is not because someone gave them good news, praised them, or suddenly made their life easier. Their happiness is connected to you. And the most surprising part? You may not even realize what you did. Something changed in you recently. Perhaps it happened quietly. Perhaps there was no announcement, no dramatic conversation, no obvious sign that anything important had occurred. But you finally did the one thing this person had secretly been waiting for. Don't skip. Because before this message ends, you are going to understand why something that seemed small from your side became enormous from theirs. For a long time, your soulmate had been waiting. Not necessarily for you to chase them, not for you to prove yourself, and not for you to become someone different. They were waiting for a shift. A shift in your heart. A shift in your confidence. A shift in the way you see yourself. And when that shift finally happened, something inside them said, "This is what I was hoping for." Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. There is a detail about this situation that changes the meaning of everything. Your soulmate has noticed more about you than you think. They noticed the moments when you were strong in front of everyone but privately questioned whether you were enough. They noticed how often you gave people another chance. They noticed how deeply you cared. They noticed the way you could walk into a room carrying emotions nobody else could see. And somewhere along the way, they began hoping you would discover something about yourself that they already believed. That you never needed to beg to be chosen. That you never needed to become smaller so another person could feel bigger. That genuine love should never require you to abandon your dignity. For so long, your soulmate wanted to see you recognize your own value. And recently, you did. Maybe you stopped chasing an answer. Maybe you stopped trying to force something that needed to happen naturally. Maybe you finally chose peace instead of constantly wondering what someone else was thinking. Maybe you looked at yourself differently. Maybe you decided that whatever happens next, you will no longer lose yourself trying to hold on to another person. Whatever form it took, your energy changed. And they noticed. Don't skip now, because this is where the story becomes deeper. Your soulmate had imagined this moment differently. They thought there would be some huge event. Some unforgettable conversation. Some dramatic realization. But instead, the change arrived quietly. You simply became calmer. More grounded. More certain of who you are. And strangely, that quiet transformation affected them more powerfully than any grand gesture could have. They began replaying moments with you. Little moments. The things you probably forgot. A conversation that lasted longer than expected. A smile they pretended not to notice. A moment when you showed kindness without asking for anything in return. Something you said casually that stayed in their mind afterward. And suddenly those memories began looking different. Because they were no longer thinking only about what happened between you. They were thinking about what could happen next. Something huge is waiting for you. Because your soulmate's happiness is hiding another emotion beneath it. Relief. They are relieved. For a long time, there was one question they could not answer. Will this person ever realize how valuable they truly are? They wanted you to see what they saw. Not perfection. Not some imaginary version of you. You. Your heart. Your loyalty. Your resilience. Your ability to care deeply without becoming cold after disappointment. Your ability to continue believing that meaningful connections exist even after confusing experiences. And when they noticed you beginning to stand differently in your own life, something inside them softened. They realized you were no longer waiting for someone else to tell you that you mattered. That is the thing they were waiting for. But there is more. Stay till the end. Because what happened after they noticed this change may surprise you. They started thinking seriously about their own behavior. Your growth became a mirror. Suddenly, they could no longer hide behind uncertainty. They could no longer tell themselves, maybe someday. They could no longer pretend that time would simply solve everything for them. Watching you move forward emotionally made them ask themselves a frightening question. What if I wait too long? And that thought changed their happiness into urgency. Not panic. Not desperation. Clarity. They began realizing that if someone matters, eventually feelings have to become actions. You cannot keep something precious forever inside your imagination. You cannot build an entire future in your mind while saying nothing in reality. And your soulmate knows this now. There was probably a time when they believed they had unlimited time. Tomorrow. Next week. Next month. When circumstances improved. When they felt more confident. When everything became perfectly clear. But something about you recently reminded them that life keeps moving. And so do you. Don't skip. The next part matters. Your soulmate is not overwhelmed with happiness because you became available to them. They are happy because you became available to yourself. You started listening to yourself again. You began respecting your intuition. You stopped treating every silence like rejection. You stopped measuring your worth by someone else's ability to recognize it. And perhaps without realizing it, you crossed an invisible emotional line. You moved from waiting to living. That changed everything. Because genuine connection becomes completely different when two people come together because they choose each other, not because one person desperately needs the other to fill an emptiness. Your soulmate wanted your love. But they never wanted your entire happiness to depend upon them. And now they are seeing something beautiful. You are becoming someone who can say, I care deeply, but I will not abandon myself. That sentence has power. And somewhere in their heart, your soulmate knows it. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. There is another reason they are so emotional. Your change has given them permission to change too. For a long time, they were carrying fear. Fear of saying too much. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear that opening their heart would make everything complicated. Fear that perhaps the timing had already been ruined. But when they saw your strength, something inside them began challenging those fears. They started asking, what am I protecting myself from? And then came another question. What if protecting myself is actually costing me the person I care about? That question stayed with them. They couldn't shake it. They carried it through ordinary moments. While doing simple things. While sitting alone. while trying to focus on something completely unrelated. And somehow their mind kept returning to you. Not because they were trying to create a fantasy. Because something unfinished remained between the two of you. Something unspoken. Something that never completely disappeared. And now your soulmate feels that the situation is entering a different chapter. Don't skip now. Because this is where the emotional truth begins coming to the surface. There was one particular thing they wanted from you. Not a message. Not a promise. Not a grand declaration. They wanted you to stop doubting yourself. That was it. Because every time you doubted yourself, they could feel distance growing. Every time you wondered whether you were worthy of genuine love, you unknowingly placed walls around the very heart someone wanted to understand. Your soulmate did not need you to become perfect. They needed you to believe you were worthy of being loved without constantly proving yourself. And something recently told them that you are beginning to understand. Maybe it was your silence. Maybe it was the way you handled something differently. Maybe it was the fact that you didn't react the way the old version of you would have reacted. Maybe you finally walked away from something that was draining you. Maybe you simply chose yourself in a moment when you normally would have chosen everyone else. Whatever it was. They noticed. And their heart responded immediately. Something huge is waiting for you. Because once they noticed your change, they began imagining a conversation with you. A real conversation. Not one filled with games. Not one where both people pretend they care less than they actually do. A conversation where the truth finally has room to breathe. They imagined telling you things they had kept hidden. Things like, I noticed you long before you realized it. I cared more than I showed. There were moments when I wanted to say something, but I didn't know whether I should. I wondered whether you felt it too. And perhaps the most important one. I was waiting for the right moment, but now I realize the right moment doesn't arrive by itself. Stay till the end. Because their happiness is connected to a decision that is slowly forming. They do not want to keep repeating the old pattern. They are tired of almost speaking. Almost reaching out. Almost being vulnerable. Almost allowing something meaningful to become real. There comes a moment when almost becomes more painful than uncertainty. Your soulmate may be reaching that moment. And strangely, your growth helped bring them there. Think about that. You didn't need to convince them. You didn't need to chase them. You didn't need to manufacture a perfect moment. You simply began returning to yourself. And that was powerful enough to change how they see the entire connection. Don't skip. There is still something you need to hear. You may have believed that becoming stronger would push love away. Perhaps somewhere inside you there was an old fear that if you stopped chasing, nobody would come closer. That if you established boundaries, people would leave. That if you stopped over-explaining yourself, someone would misunderstand you. But healthy love does not become frightened when you develop self-respect. Healthy love recognizes it. Your soulmate is not looking at your growth and thinking, they don't need me anymore. They are thinking something completely different. Now I can meet them as an equal. That is why this happiness feels so deep. Because what they were waiting for was never your dependence. It was your readiness. Emotional readiness. The readiness to receive something without questioning whether you deserve it. The readiness to hear honesty without immediately assuming the worst. The readiness to love someone while still remaining yourself. And yes, they are thinking about what comes next. Something huge is waiting for you. They have begun imagining possibilities they previously pushed away. What would happen if they finally spoke honestly? What would happen if both of you stopped allowing assumptions to control the story? What would happen if everything that felt delayed was actually preparing both of you to meet differently? Those questions are becoming louder. And something fascinating is happening. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that happiness isn't only about getting what you want. Sometimes happiness arrives when you finally see that the person you care about has stepped into their own strength. They are proud of you. Quietly. Perhaps secretly. Perhaps from a distance. But proud. Because there were moments when you could have become bitter. You didn't. There were moments when disappointment could have convinced you that love wasn't worth believing in. Yet some softness remained inside you. There were moments when you could have allowed someone else's confusion to define your worth. But eventually, you began choosing differently. That is what they were waiting for. Don't skip now. Because there is one final layer beneath all of this. Your soulmate's happiness is also mixed with surprise. They did not expect your transformation to affect them this strongly. They thought they could simply observe. Keep their feelings controlled. Stay comfortable. But your growth disrupted their comfort. Because suddenly you look different to them, not physically, but emotionally. There is something powerful about a person who stops begging life to choose them and begins choosing themselves. Their presence changes. Their silence changes. Their decisions change. Even the way other people respond to them changes. And your soulmate can feel that. They know others may notice it too. And that realization has forced them to confront something they had avoided. You will not remain emotionally frozen forever. Your story is moving. With or without anyone else's permission. Stay till the end. Because this is not about making your soulmate jealous. It is not about playing games. It is not about pretending you don't care. It is about something far more meaningful. You have finally begun understanding that love should add to your life, not erase you from it. And that realization is creating space for something healthier. Something mutual. Something honest. Your soulmate senses that space opening. And for the first time in a long time, they are not only wondering whether something could happen. They are wondering what they need to do if they truly want to be part of what happens next. That distinction changes everything. Because thinking about someone is easy. Choosing them requires courage. Imagining a conversation is easy. Having it requires vulnerability. Wanting another chance is easy. Showing that you have grown enough to deserve one requires action. And your soulmate is beginning to understand this. Something huge is waiting for you. Because while you were learning to stop chasing, they were learning that they cannot keep hiding. While you were learning patience, they were learning courage. While you were learning self-worth, they were learning honesty. And perhaps that is why certain things could not happen earlier. Not because you were forgotten. Not because your story was meaningless. But because two people can care about each other and still need growth before they know what to do with those feelings. Timing changes people. Distance reveals things. Silence exposes what noise sometimes hides. And now the silence is saying something neither of you can ignore forever. Don't skip. Your soulmate has begun looking backward differently. Some memories that once seemed ordinary now feel significant. They remember things you said. They remember moments when you looked at them and seemed to understand something they hadn't spoken. They remember the strange comfort of being around you. They remember how your presence felt familiar in a way they couldn't logically explain. And now they are connecting those memories with the person you are becoming. That is why their happiness is so overwhelming. They feel as though something they hoped for quietly has finally happened. You stopped waiting to become worthy. You realized you already were. And now, the next move is no longer yours alone. Let that sink in. You have done something important. Not for them. For yourself. You chose growth. You chose dignity. You chose peace. And because of that, anyone who genuinely wants a place in your life must now meet you there. Your soulmate knows this. They know the old approach will not work anymore. Half-hearted effort will not be enough. Confusing signals will not be enough. Endless waiting will not be enough. If they want something real, they will eventually have to bring something real. Stay till the end. Because here comes the part that changes the entire message. The one thing they were waiting for was never something you could give directly to them. It was something you had to give yourself. Permission. Permission to move forward. Permission to stop carrying old disappointment. Permission to believe that your future does not have to repeat your past. Permission to receive love without losing your identity. Permission to be happy before every unanswered question is resolved. And when you finally gave yourself that permission, your entire emotional world began shifting. Your soulmate felt the difference. That is the big news. You thought perhaps they were waiting for a confession from you. No. You thought they were waiting for you to prove how much you cared. No. You thought they needed another sign. No. They were waiting for you to realize that you are worthy of being met halfway. And now that you are beginning to understand it, the balance has changed. Something huge is waiting for you. But remember this. Do not abandon your growth because someone finally notices it. Do not return to old patterns because someone suddenly gives you attention. Do not exchange your peace for uncertainty. The right connection will not require you to shrink back into the person you worked so hard to outgrow. If this person steps forward, let their actions speak. Let consistency speak. Let honesty speak. Let patience speak. Because beautiful words can create a moment. But genuine effort creates a future. And somewhere inside, your soulmate understands that too. They know that if they come toward you now, they cannot come casually. Something has changed. You have changed. And that means the story must change with you. Don't skip this final truth. The happiness your soulmate feels is not the ending. It is the beginning of a realization. They are seeing you differently. They are seeing themselves differently. And they are beginning to understand that what happens next cannot be built from fear, hesitation, or assumptions. It has to be built from truth. Perhaps that truth becomes a conversation. Perhaps it becomes an apology. Perhaps it becomes a confession that has been waiting far too long. Perhaps it simply becomes two people finally seeing each other without all the old noise between them. Whatever comes next, remember the lesson hidden beneath everything. You did not become valuable because someone finally recognized you. They recognized you differently because you finally recognized yourself. And that is why they are overwhelmed with happiness. That is why their thoughts keep returning to you. That is why something that seemed tiny from your perspective became enormous from theirs. The thing they had been waiting for finally happened. You chose yourself without closing your heart. You became stronger without becoming colder. You stopped chasing without stopping believing. And now the person who once wondered whether you would ever see your own worth is realizing that you finally do. Stay till the end of this moment and carry this with you. Whatever happens next, walk forward as the person you have become. Do not shrink. Do not rush. Do not force. Let what is genuine reveal itself through genuine action. Because the biggest surprise may not be that your soulmate is happy. The biggest surprise may be what your transformation inspires them to finally do next. And when that moment arrives, you may realize that the one thing they had been waiting for was also the one thing your own heart had been waiting for all along. For you to know your worth. Something huge is waiting for you. And this time, you won't have to lose yourself to receive it.